Choosing the right puppy for service dog work can feel intimidating, but a well structured temperament test combined with solid breeder research can make a huge difference in whether the puppy will become a successful service dog or be a wash. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. Why does a temperament test or doing a temperament test matter? The reason why this is one of the most important aspects when it comes to service dog training is you could be literally the best trainer in the world. And if your dog does not have the right temperament, it won't matter. It'll be a wash. So obviously it's important for the human to understand training and not quote unquote mess up the training. But if you have a dog with a really solid temperament, you can mess up a lot more and still be okay. Essentially, a puppy with the right temperament, meaning confidence, resilience, eagerness to engage, makes training smoother and more effective, especially for service dog tasks. Whether your pup is from a breeder or a rescue, temperament testing will help you gauge what kind of baseline behaviors they have in terms of social attraction, body sensitivity, and recovery from startling events. And of course, that eagerness to want to learn. Now, there are a lot of different temperament tests out there, but I'm going to go through the one that I like to use. And so if you're interested in learning about others, you can always do a quick Google search and find several puppy temperament tests. But like I said, this is the one that I like to use. So here are the assessment items. First, you want to test their social attraction and willingness to follow. I recommend walking around the room and see, does the puppy come readily when approached? What does their body language look like? Do they approach you with a more relaxed tail? And the reason why this is important is because service dogs need strong bonding potential. Pups who naturally seek out human contact are much more likely to form tight working bonds. Next, we want to look for body sensitivity. How does the puppy handle gentle restraint, being picked up, having their paws, their ears, their muzzle touched, especially because the paws have a lot of nerve endings. This can be a really sensitive area for pups and dogs. It's kind of like having your feet tickled, but way more intense because dogs, like I said, have more nerve endings in their paw. This is important, not just for service dogs, but all dogs because of vet visits, grooming, any kind of, keeping up with their health, right? But especially for service dogs, because you cannot control the public. You can't control whether a child is going to run up and pull your dog's tail. And while a dog doesn't need to necessarily enjoy it, we want to make sure they're not a bite risk or a public safety risk. Next, we want to work with dropping a item. And I always feel bad doing this one, but you don't have to do it more than once. I wouldn't do it more than once because we're not trying to scare puppies, right? But I will drop a book or something kind of closer to the ground so it's not as loud. And our goal is to see how well our dogs recover from this event. So you can give them a treat after this, but if the puppy is really anxious, even a treat might not necessarily help. They might be looking back, looking around. But if they don't mind it as much, they can startle, but we want them to recover quickly and just make sure you praise them and give them lots of extra treats for enduring that. The next thing we want to look at is their play and prey drive. We want to see, does the puppy want to chase toys, retrieve, tug? Do they show interest in new objects? And the reason behind this is because we do want some drive because that's going to show us their ability to want to work. And a lot of task training will require things like teaching your dog to tug to open a door, for example, or teaching your dog to go fetch your medication, right? So they need to have a little bit of drive in order to task train successfully. We don't want a dog that is so obsessed with the toy that, they're not going to listen to you. So we're really looking for that balanced drive. We don't want too little drive because that's going to be lack of motivation, but hyperdrive can be overwhelming if not managed. Typically at this age, we're just looking to see if they have an interest in toys because puppies at this age are typically not going to have. Next, we'll look at food drive and problem solving and their willingness to solve problems to get that food. So we want to look at things like, will the puppy take food from my hand? Will the puppy maybe even move or paw at an object to get to the food? Will they find hidden treats under containers? Food motivation is so important because that is going to be the fastest way to train. If every time you have to play tug of war with your dog for 10 minutes after you tell them to sit, they successfully do it, and then you have to play tug for 10 minutes, that's not very feasible. So food is going to be the quickest form of reinforcement and the most clear form of communication, especially when we use a verbal marker or clicker. Okay, so next let's talk about breeder considerations, because this is a big one. When it comes to looking for a breeder, we want to do some real research and first make sure that they have some sort of health clearance. The first thing we're going to look for is health clearances. Pen hip or OFA results help ensure your pup has healthy hips, elbows, or other breed specific checks. You always want to ask, if it's not already listed on their website, to actually look at the test results. If you're not sure how to read them, you could always talk to a veterinarian or use Google to figure it out. But these test results help ensure that your pup is going to have healthy hips, elbows, or other breed specific checks. If you go on OFA's website, which I'll link to below, they have the tests that you should ask for depending on your breed. So you could see, if you look up Labrador Retriever, what health tests they'll need. And of course, what health tests are recommended. Now, the other thing I want to look at is early neurological stimulation, or ESS. There are programs for this, like Puppy Culture, but ultimately what these programs are they do some sort of ENS, which is early neurological stimulation, as I mentioned. And this is where the breeder, before your puppy goes home, introduces some structured handling and mild stressors that build resilience and confidence. If the breeder actually does these protocols, then you can expect a more reliable and confident adult dog. Now, it's important to remember too that just because someone learns a program and gets a certification, it doesn't mean they're going to actually implement it. That said, the fact that they're taking this step to do this extra stuff is always a good sign. I would say next is that they have a history of service dog placement, not necessarily therapy dog, because therapy dog is a lot easier to kind of get that title than a service dog, right? We want to know that dogs in their litter were successfully placed and became working service dogs. Now, last but not least, let's talk about setting realistic expectations. All of these things I mentioned are going to give you the best chance to ensure that your puppy has the temperament that we need to become a service dog. That said, genetics are wild, okay? And there's never a guarantee. Even if a puppy aces the temperament test and has stellar breeding behind them, no dog is ever guaranteed to become a successful service dog. This is because temperament can always evolve, especially as a pup matures. A relaxed pup at 8 weeks could show new traits during their adolescence, around 6 to 14 months, depending on the breed. So remain flexible and keep evaluating at those key milestone periods. Okay. So quick tips for when you do your own temperament evaluation. First, know that environment matters. You want to pick a quiet area or at least manage distractions. Less chaos means clear puppy responses. Make sure that you have your props ready. Bring a ball or squeaky toy for the portion of the test where you test their toy drive. Bring a small container so that you can see how motivated they are to take treats, and maybe a book that's safe to drop or an umbrella. Last but not least, I cannot stress this enough, recording video is so important. And I always say to my students in my online courses that recording video, it just helps your dog training so much. There are things in the moment that you're not going to notice with your dog, and you don't watch yourself when you're training. And so you might not notice what you're doing with your hands and how you may be unintentionally cueing your dog with other body language that you're doing. So same with our puppies, when we're doing their evaluation, we want to rewatch footage and take notes of any important moments in time. Rewatching footage can reveal subtle signs of confidence or stress that you may have missed in the moment. Okay, so to recap, a thorough temperament test plus working with a responsible breeder who has placed service dogs, it has a history of placing service dogs, can set the stage for a strong service dog candidate. It's never a guarantee, but a combination of the right temperament and improving your training skills equals a much higher chance of training a successful service dog. And one more thing I want to share with you is that I do have my entry-level course called the Psychiatric Service Dog Self-Training A to Z Blueprint. This goes over everything you really need to know about self-training a service dog, from how do you make sure you qualify in the United States. It includes a training plan for public access. I break up into phases what you'll need to work on for each phase in the self-training journey, and I provide tips for how to interact with the public. If you're interested, this course is only $19 for a limited time. All right, that's it, everyone. Bye for now.